How do you master color? I don't know, but I do know enough to show you the basics. Okay, I'll show you my work method as to achieving a cinematic look of color. It's super simple once you really understand it, and from there you can apply it to almost any clip. I want to give a nice little shout out to my little brother Connor. He went out and got these clips for me. I told him, hey, go get me 6 clips, 5 seconds each. I'm gonna use them for a video. And he provided. He will be starting a YouTube channel soon. I love it, and you know, we're gonna get him going on that. But in the meantime, enough talking. I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope each and every single one of you learn something new. Okay, so the first clip we have is a clip Connor had taken for me. So this whole clip is actually perfectly exposed, okay? It's a little blown out on the fence there, and a little blown out up here. And you can see that through your Lumetri scopes. So your Lumetri scopes are light waves, if you will. That's what I call them, light rays, because you have sun rays, but this is not the sun. This is lighting in your video, so I'm gonna call them light rays. It's going to track the light rays throughout the whole video. So the top one here is gonna be your waveform, tracking the light, the luminosity, so the luma. You might be familiar with that. Looking through Premiere Pro, you might recognize that word luma because it pops up all over the place. Luma is light. And then down here is just going to be your white balance. So if you come over here to your basic corrections and turn your white balance warm, you'll see the reds peak and the blues soften. And if you do the opposite, same thing. Blues peak, reds soften. And same thing with the tint. If you peak your greens, the greens will peak, the red and blue will soften. Red and blue mixed together makes magenta. So if you peak those two together, the greens will soften and the magenta will peak. Your waveform is going to be your number one thing for basic correction. Your RGB waveform, which is going to be your white balance, is going to be your number 2 thing. You pick a familiar point within these waveforms. I'm going to go off of this line up here. These lines are all lined up together. Therefore, this is white balanced. And the white in this video is truly white. So you might be wondering, what do I need to look for within the waveform? Up here is going to be your whites. Up here are your whites. And if you come over to your basic corrections and adjust your whites down, they'll soften. You adjust them up, they'll peak. Down at the bottom are going to be your blacks. Same thing, if you peak them, they'll go up. If you lower them, they'll soften. So what do you need to do with these? Well, there's kind of a general rule. You want the peak of your whites to sit at 90 or below. So we'll come over here and we'll adjust our whites until the peak is sitting at 90. And with your blacks, you want it to sit right above 0. Okay, so just by those 2 basic little corrections, you can see somewhat of a difference. And then what I like to do next is I like to add a little bit of a shadow. By doing that, I build a little bit of contrast in my scene, and I don't overblow anything in the process. With my highlights, sometimes I'll peak them, sometimes I'll lower them. That is honestly all preference in my opinion. For this kind of feel that I'm going for, I'm going to lower them just as much as the shadows. And just through those little settings, using our Luma waveform, we achieved true perfect exposure for what we're going for. Okay, so now I have a new clip here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna achieve a cinematic look with color. As you can see in the scopes up here, I did everything we talked about recently and tuned everything in perfectly. Now it's just a matter of bringing color to your scene. If you look at majority of movies, you'll see that there is a teal look to them. And that is kind of the standard cinematic look in my opinion. The reason they use teal is because if you come down here and you look for a skin tone kind of color, it's gonna be up here. And what's opposite of that? Teal. So what they're doing is they're throwing in the opposite of the people's skin tone. And what that does is it adds contrast. And overall, you really do make it yours. So a way to do that, in my personal favorite way, is I'm gonna go through and look for a majority color through my scene. And if you see, we have this maroon here, here, and along here. I really like this maroon for it to affect the leaves here, maybe that bucket a little bit, and maybe the table down here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the HSL secondary tab, and through there, I'm gonna use the color dropper to select the color I want to contrast off of. Okay, so now you're gonna check this little checkbox here to see what you have selected. I don't have quite enough. So using the S and the L tabs, I'm going to select the broad area of that color. By doing that, I select everything in the scene that relates to that color. I'm going to add a little bit of a denoise and a little bit of a blur just to kind of mix everything in together. Now what I want to do is I want to invert everything. And so now I am editing everything that is not that color that we selected originally. I'm going to uncheck this just to get a good visual of what I'm about to do. I'm going to look for the maroon in this color wheel. It's about right here. I'm going to come down to the plus and I'm going to go opposite of it. I'm going to keep on going until I feel comfortable. Now we're going to achieve perfect contrast with our color. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add an S curve. This is going to give perfect contrast to our scene. The way I like to do it is I like to come to the curves tab in our Lumetri color tab. I'm going to select in the middle, and then I'm going to select up here on this dot, and I'm going to select down here on this dot. So what you're ideally going for is 3 dots just like this. Down here are going to be your shadows and your blacks. Up here are going to be your whites and your highlights. And the one in the middle is just to kind of blend them together. What we're going to do is we're going to pull down our blacks a little bit and pull up our whites. Now if you turn off the curves, you'll truly see a difference. Without them, the image is flat. And you didn't realize, without them, the image is flat. With them, the image is rich.